Hello everyone, welcome back to a new post today. And today let's discuss about the Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to three most important countries for three most important events, and those are the G7 summit. However, the Quad has been just called off by the Australian government because President Joe Biden will not be attending it. And apart from that, the Forum of Indo-Pacific Island Nations meeting with India, that is happening after a gap of almost 8 years. So the first visit by the Prime Minister to Papua New Guinea, and also a lot of discussions happening at the G7 Hiroshima. What's the importance of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Hiroshima and the G7 happening in Japan, Hiroshima? So the place is significant, and also today's meeting for which the Prime Minister Narendra Modi has left is also important and significant, keeping in mind the Russia-Ukraine war and also the arms and the ammunitions that are being used there in that war. So some of the concerns which Japan is going to cite it, especially at the G7 summit. Let's have a quick review of the roundup of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit, so that in the coming days the visit is going to extend up to May 24th. When you read those things, you will have a better idea of it. Now this issue is really important from political science optional point of view, especially those which have the political science and international relations optional for the UPSC mains, as international relations is a major component. And apart from that, international relations India and world, and also the international relations from ethics point of view is also important for GS paper 4, and apart from that GS paper 2, polity and governance as well. So Prime Minister Narendra Modi is now on a visit to Japan, Papua New Guinea and Australia from May 19 to 24. This will be the first visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi to New Guinea, I must tell you. And he is travelling on to Japan on the invitation of Kishida, who is going to host the G7 summit in the capacity of the current chair of G7. G7 are a 7 group of industrialized, most developed and industrialized nation, which almost have half of the world's revenue, and also they account for 30 to 43% of the world's GDP as well. So this group came into being known as the Library Group, and also there were Russia was a part of it, but then it was removed after the Crimea issue in 2014. Now Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be on a 6-day visit to these countries and also Australia to attend key multilateral summits, including the Group of 7 and the Quad as well. So in the final leg of his trip, he will go to Australia, where the Quad summit was to being held, but it just recently, few hours back, it has been called off by the Australian government because Joe Biden is not going to come for the summit. Now the Quad summit was to be hosted by Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, who would be joined by the US and also Japan. So the Quad members is a security dialogue which was recently formed, not very too old as well, just in 2017, and it includes India, US, the Japan and Australia as well. So it's an informal strategic forum, and with a focus on Indo-Pacific. It comprises, as I told you, US, India, Australia and Japan, and one of the major primary objectives is for a free, open, prosperous and an inclusive rule-based Indo-Pacific region. Now the Indo-Pacific region is a new terminology that is being used in international arena, which is being replaced for Asia-Pacific region. And it is a much wider region connecting both the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean, looking at it as one region for international affairs. And it's the main focus, especially now. So many countries have been bringing out the individual Indo-Pacific policy. Very recently, it has been Germany and Bangladesh as well. Now the group met for the very first time in 2007 on the sidelines of the ASEAN meeting, that is the Association of Southeast Nations grouping, and it is considered as an alliance of maritime democracies. Now the forum is maintained its meetings through semi-regular summits, information exchanges, also military drills, the famous exercise Malabar that is conducted between these 4 countries. Now it was during Shinzo Abe. If you look at the brief history of the Quad, it was formed the idea was first floated by our late Shinzo Abe, that was the Japanese Prime Minister, and the formation of Quad in 2007 G7 happened. So the representatives of the four nations have met periodically. Its origin can be traced back actually to the evolution of exercise Malabar, and in 2004 tsunami, India considered relief and rescue operations with using this exercise for its neighboring countries, and then was later joined by US, Japan and Australia. It is believed now that this forum strategically counters Russia's economic and military rise both in the Pacific region, in the Pacific Islands, mainly the South China Sea, and also in the Indian Ocean because of its Belt and Road initiatives, which has both a land and as well as a maritime component. So the land component is called as the Belt and Road Initiative, and the maritime is the Maritime Silk Route of the Belt and One Belt One Road Initiative. Yes. So it's a series of infrastructure projects connecting China all through the Asia and ending in Europe. So it's only laying the path for more and more transportation of Chinese goods. Now, as a member of Quad, as the membership of Quad was given rise because of China's hostilities in the borders, and also there is a view that India can take the support of the Quad members in case of any hostilities with China, but this has been proven false because still we have not having any disengagement, and also the moving away of the Chinese troops from the border after Ladakh happened way back in 2020. So we still have two areas from which the Chinese have to re-establish their military holdings there at the Indian border. So it's said that India can take the help of the Quad countries, but this has not been proven. However, the focus of this is nothing but to increase relations between the Indian Ocean and Pacific, and also see them as one because they are connected climatically as well as regionally as well. So this region is being touted as a bigger focus now in international arena. Coming to the G7, now the first leg of the trip will be to the Japanese city of Hiroshima from May 19 to 21st for the annual summit of the G7, and this Prime Minister Modi's visit to Japan is the first by the Indian Prime Minister after India conducted the nuclear test in Pokhran in 1974. Now the last Indian Prime Minister to visit Hiroshima after the place suffered a bomb attack in 1945 was Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru in 1957. Modi was going to reach Hiroshima on May 19, and he will attend the G7. Now during the summit, the Prime Minister will speak about to the G7 sessions and partner countries on various subjects like peace, stability, prosperity, sustainable planet, food, fertilizer, energy security, health, gender equality, climate change, environment, resilient infrastructure development, etc. But however, the focus of the Japanese is something more. Now according to the Japanese Foreign Minister, the agenda includes the Ukraine nuclear disarmament, non-proliferation, Indo-Pacific economic resilience, economic security, among others. Modi's presence at Hiroshima is very, very significant this time, as India is one of the very few countries that has not signed the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, or the NPT. Now he will be joining the G7 leaders at the Peace Memorial Park dedicated to the victim and the survivors of the Hiroshima attack. From the Japanese perspective, it is a very important moment for the Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida, who hails from the Hiroshima, and his constituency is located in the very central Hiroshima city as well. Now, sources from the Indian side says that there are sensitivities of people of India with the people of Japan, and Hiroshima in particular with regard to there are sensitivities of Japan with regard to India's nuclear test, and also Delhi not being a signatory to NPT, and because of this for some time India has strained relations with Japan as well. India has been preparing to underline its view that the NPT is discriminatory, and this is what the position India has always stood by. Its nuclear program, India says, is for peaceful purposes. Its commitment to unilateral moratorium on nuclear tests and its no first use policy with regard to nuclear tests comes at the forefront of this argument. India is also to project its track record as a responsible nuclear power. Even recently, it has expressed its concern about the nuclear war rhetoric by the Russian leaders in the context of the war in Ukraine. Besides India, who will host the G20 summit in September, the G7 grouping includes Japan, Italy, Canada, France, US, UK and Germany. Now, the invitees are EU, Australia, Brazil, Comoros, the Cook Islands, Indonesia, South Korea, Vietnam as invitees to the outreach session, and the organizations such as the UN, IMF, World Bank, WHO, WTO will also attend the summit. India says by inviting India, Japanese has actually portrayed India to be a representative of the global South, which is a vast community of 120 developing and underdeveloping countries as well. Also, Japan wants to use the Hiroshima summit to demonstrate G7's determination to uphold the international order based on the rule of law, firmly rejecting the unilateral attempt to change status quo by the force of use of threat of nuclear weapons, as Russia has done. So let me just remind you, recently Russia has suspended its participation to the New START treaty, and also it is increasing its nuclear stockpile as well. So this is the concern recently, and the war hasn't ended until now. Let's move on. So after the Japanese Japan visit, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be going to Port Moresby in Papua New Guinea, and where he will be hosting the third summit for Forum for Indo-India-Pacific Islands Cooperation, or the FIPIC, on May 22nd, which will be jointly done with Prime Minister James Marape. Now, this forum was launched in 2014 by India, and it involves India and 14 island Pacific countries: Fiji, Papua New Guinea, Tonga, Tuvalu, Kiribati, Samoa, Vanuatu, New Federated States of Micronesia, Republic of Marshall Islands, Cook Islands, Palau, Nauru, and the Solomon Islands. So they are located very close to Australia and in the west of the Pacific Ocean. The summit is being, let me tell you, after a gap of 8 years. India hosted the last one in 2015 in Jaipur, and the first one was held in Fiji. Now, this could give a fresh momentum to India's bid to establish its presence in the Pacific Island countries. India also began its outreach in 2014, but after that the ground was slowed down. These places are very strategic. For example, if you want to make a naval base or a friendly port or even a friendly airstrip, also these places have vast oceanic resources. So that is why this region is really important for India, and though we have a very small Indian community there, the diaspora plays a very important role. Now, Papua New Guinea especially is very significant for India. This island consists of 9.5 million, and it is the largest of the Pacific islands and one of the few in which India has long-standing ties, and also as a trade relationship as well. It is also home to very small Indian community of just 3,000 people. The two sides are expected to sign pacts including cooperation on micro, small to medium enterprises, and agreements between the Strait broadcasters, reciprocal arrangements for issuing of visas on arrival. Now, one of the important challenges that Papua New Guinea faces is climate change. Apart from this of New Guinea, even the other islands of the Pacific Ocean face the climate change and also adaptation. Apart from that, they also feel the impact of the El Nino and the La Nina energy atmospheric phenomena. These are areas where now India can play a very major role, because India is already a part of the International Solar Alliance. And also some of these grouping countries are also part of the International Solar Alliance. They look towards India for affordable clean energy partnership, especially in solar energy. Now, New Guinea wants to shift its economy from export of primary materials such as natural gas, minerals to finished products. Now, country is also being quoted by the US and its allies amidst the concerns about Chinese growing economic and military influence in this region. And also Xi Jinping has recently visited this place as late as 2018. China is also making inroads into the Pacific Island countries further from South China with its Belt and Road Initiative, which has a maritime component. And Beijing has signed a security deal last year with Solomon Islands, and in March it also won the contract to redevelop the port in the capital city of Honaira. So these are some of the concerns. Analysts say that India also hopes to partner with the Pacific Island countries with development initiatives in areas such as clean energy, technology, community development such as solar electrification, because these countries suffer the most from climate change and sea level rise. So these countries are largely looking towards renewable energy and also touting India one of the major partner in this initiative. Apart from that, also supply of agriculture equipment will be discussed with India. Affordable clean energy initiatives are especially very important in this region. As I told you, that climate change is affecting this and also posing a great threat to the security of this region because of the sea level rise and also the cyclones in this region. Now, some see the India's outreach to the Pacific Island countries as a part of its ambitions to be viewed as an emerging global power. Analysts also say that India's bid to influence the Pacific Islands marks an ambitious beginning. Now, it has limitations that cannot match anywhere the Chinese resources, and however, New Delhi's primary focus will be on the immediate neighborhood of South Asia and India-China. But apart from that, as I told you, the focus now is on Indo-Pacific, just not Asia-Pacific, and New Delhi wants to enrich its ties with these island nations as well, and also play a major role with regard to renewable energy, because we at home have our own goals with the updated intended nationally determined contributions towards Paris Climate Change Agreement and also the Sustainable Development Goals, which have to be achieved till 2030. And I hope this information was really helpful to you all. If you did, please do like, share, subscribe, and I shall see you in my next post. Until then, it's very happy learning.